I'm here this evening with James.
Hi.
James Brockhurst. Hello, James.
Hi, Karen.
We haven't done a hangout for a little while, have we? I can't remember now.
Um, well, so much happened.
Oh, yeah, you've been writing a book.
Yeah, well, no, not one.
No.
The first one, that's already on the channel as an audio book in stages. I'm working on books 2, 3, and 4. So, but I've actually put a stop on those at the moment because there's been too many other things happening.
Right.
Oh
Well,
no, it's instantaneous healing. The most recent one, it was a cat with a broken pelvis, and it's now trying to walk around within 24 hours.
that's very serious for a cat, because it happened to my cat. I
Yeah.
don't even know how it happened, and I trod on her as well, and because
Ah,
she's got a broken pelvis, and when she stood up, she went ah, and I took
yeah.
her to the vets. And they said it's really like after cancer or something, a broken pelvis is the worst thing that can happen to a cat.
Yeah.
Because if it
Yeah.
can't pee, that's the end of its life.
Yeah.
All that, and I was like, oh god, because they said, well, if her pelvis isn't right, you could always, like do a shh on her bladder to make her go to the toilet. And I'm like, can you imagine doing that for the rest of your life, taking a cat out
Yeah.
and then making it go to the? I just don't think that would have happened.
But it's all just channeling energy, really. That's all it is.
But anyway, yeah, it's really bad for a cat to have that. But
Yeah.
my cat was all right from that.
Well, this one's trying to walk around already. So that's all good.
Well, that's good. Um,
Yeah.
Yesterday we had a bit of a chat that we were going to talk about a few things.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to start with? That the never-ending tunnels, or
Yeah, let's do that bit first.
Okay. Yeah.
James
Okay.
got a little bit interested in the video I put up about those people. I forget which channel it is now, but they went to Plymouth and they were looking inside what I would call a redoubt fort, all under the ground. But Mikey sent me the link and he reckoned it looked like a pyramid inside. So I thought it was all interesting, and the fact that the amount of steps they had to go down. So what's your thoughts then, James?
Well, the first thing I noticed when they're doing the drone footage, I thought, I've seen that pattern before. It's almost like a
What bit's
pentagon
that?
straight.
You mean with the brown rock, the grey and the brick, or something else?
No. On the when you look at the tree line, the way that goes, and then it's got where the sort of corners are, as it were. They're rounded like turret impressions. And I thought, yes, I mean, when people say star forts, they're not always like star shaped. You get the 5-sided one. There's many different ones. And I thought, yeah, I've seen this Landguard Fort Felixstowe on Google Earth. It's very clear. Then I thought, yeah, I've seen that same design right by the Statue of Liberty. I think it might have been John Levi's channel that featured that, and it's like same architectural style. And then you look at Alcatraz and numerous other places, and it's like it's the same architecture all the way through. And it's always beside water. That's the other thing with these things.
Is that one quite close to water? I can't remember where it is.
It's a river estuary,
Well,
and I would say part of that is still operational.
I just find it weird that it goes down and down and down and down and down and down and down. It doesn't seem to stop. And how would they be able to do that in those days?
Presumably, the ground was lower and it's been built up over it, or
Why
it's
would they?
been
Why would
covered
that
over.
happen? What, the river? You mean?
Well, the ground, whether it's
But it
it's
didn't.
to
It didn't
disguise
ruin
it.
the building.
No, I think it's because they're too well built. I think that's the reason it's still there, is because it would cost too much to remove, and what would you gain by taking it out anyway? Just a hole, really. And I think it would give away too much. But the interesting thing, because I watched that full, I think it the Vault or some name like that, the channel name,
Yeah.
and they said the middle bit, which has been blocked off, is warm. I'd say there's something still operational below the ground that
And what's your ideas about that then?
probably natural magnetic forces of Earth that are being harnessed and used in some way.
You think so? Right.
Well, when they say about they decommission a building, I think there's more than one interpretation. There's decommissioning what the public see and decommissioning
Yeah.
sort of energy harnessing aspect.
I actually thought it looks like a building where you're playing almost, what is it, paint gun thing, you know. You go in there, you've got a half an hour or an hour to get out, we're going to be following you, and if we find you, we're going to kill you. It just looks like it's to run through, and it's so clean. I mean, the one thing Christian said was it's very clean in there. You know, we've come across a lot of places lately, and they're all filled up with people's goods and stuff, or just left. That place was empty, but it does look like go in there and then you run around, and then we'll get you one by one.
Well, it's interesting as well
Like
as
a
the cleanliness,
isn't it, James?
Yeah, as well as the cleanliness, the steps look a lot more modern. They do resemble
Can I get a
like
picture of it up in case people don't know what we're looking at the stairs right now, James.
Yeah.
And I just said to you, it does remind me of like a tube train tunnel.
It is very reminiscent of those subway entrances to the underground. Interesting, those steps look completely different from the walls, the stone and the brick.
Yes, you know, when I was making the video myself, I said the steps look a bit more concrete like.
Yeah.
And then obviously we're looking at the brown, I think we're looking at the grey brick stone and the brick. There's also dark brown stone. But anyway, we're going down the stairs, and you can see there's a few levels in front of them.
Well, that's the first thing I would look at with this. I mean, the guys said they were given a key on the quiet to unlock the door to go in. The first thing I noticed,
really, James, that's naughty. But anyway, carry on.
The first thing I noticed was the amount of green and moss. So that would indicate that there's very few people walking around on the external part of it.
Right, that's on the picture right now, that moss.
Yeah, because it's still in use. It's still MOD, because they were told leave it till late on Sunday, but because they do exercises and things there. But
well, there you go then. I was right then, because I said it's just like they put you in there and they tell you to get out, but of course they're going to get you first.
Yeah,
right.
But the telltale sign there is with the exterior pathways, they're clearly not being walked on. That part is not being used now. It's in total contrast with how sparkling clean those stairs are. Because when you get down to those very low level bits, there's some dodgy bits with water and things in the bottom. But so there's no muddy footprints coming up from there. You've got that they mentioned about that center section, that's all been blanked off. The doorways have all been blocked off, and they said they could feel heat coming from that middle section. And like you highlighted on your video, there's that one section where you've got that high pitched frequency noise as well, just in that one area.
Yeah, should we go to that bit? Hang on, James. Yeah, I've just got that bit up. Filter just high pitch 50%. Anyway, that's that bit.
Yeah, so that's interesting. What's causing that? And it's only in that one specific area. So that again says to me there's something that maybe it's because it's digital equipment, it's picking it up on the speakers. I can't remember if they said they actually heard it themselves or it's just something that's been picked up by their equipment.
Well, I must admit, I put a tiny bit of music over it. It was very, very faint. It was only when they sort of altered the levels and turned it up a bit I heard it. But yeah, there. Well, seemingly there.
What I
this bit, as they're walking along, it's light grey stone, and then they're going to go up the steps and under an arch which is made of brick.
Well, initially when I saw that, I thought, oh, the brick has been used to build up an
Well, it looks
existing
like it's been
structure.
mended 3 times. It was dark stone, then there's
Well,
this grey stone, and then there's brick. There's 3 types of things in there.
well, I would say because all those tunnels and things seem to have these sort of domed brick roofs, I think that's why they are in brick, because it's an easier using smaller blocks than
But
the
that
stone.
looks Artarian, doesn't it?
I don't know about that, but it's what I thought was
Well, they
interesting when you
wouldn't
go
put that
down.
in today, would they, James? They'd be putting concrete in or something.
Yeah, but if you look at the patterns in the stone, it's not like the regular pattern you get with bricks, but there is a definite design and a pattern to it.
Yeah, there's looks like there's brick in there as well. I see what
Yeah,
you mean. Just over here, I can see
yeah.
3 and then 1 there and 1 there. So, what do you mean then? They've been covered with this. What's happened then?
Well, you said you've got, I can't remember because
Oh, you
I'm
think
doing,
the whole thing's brick?
hold on, I'm doing this from memory because I haven't got the video in front of me. I don't remember about two color stones, but maybe that's water discoloration and it's the same
No.
stone. It is definitely a different
Yeah, they're
stone.
going through these sort of tunnels. It might be after this bit. I can't remember.
Yeah,
And then you can see this dark stone,
yeah.
and then this grey stone, and then in the arches is brick. So there's 3 types. So it's been mended twice. That's what it looked like to me. The grey stone definitely sticks out. You've got dark stone, light stone, bricks.
Yeah, it's the quality of the brick
I'll
as
tell you
well.
what, just for the public, and so you can see it on the video, I'll just go and find it. Hang on. I'm not sure if this has come through that well, but when they're walking through, I might even just play it again in a minute. But there's this dark brick stone, the lighter stone, and also the bricks. We'll go back a tiny bit, and James will say what he's got to say as I'm playing it. Right, James, I'm playing it now.
Okay.
Well, it's fiddling around while it's waiting to come on. Come on, video. It's got stuck now. But anyway, there's darker. There you go. It's playing now. Grey stone, dark grey stone. Now it's got stuck again. Light grey stone, dark grey stone, brick. Dark, light, dark with the brick. Okay, we've played that bit,
Okay.
James. And it looks like bits have been mended because in the middle of the stone they put some brick at the end. But let me turn it off a second. Because we've got to the end of that bit. 2, 1. From my end, when I'm looking, it looks different. But I do remember our melted reality. I've got a video of his waiting to go out. He's saying, see all this mush? When you go up to the end, it's not mush, it was bricks and it's melted. So something like that could have happened in here. It could be, I don't know.
Well, I was thinking, I mean, when you see the drone footage and then think how deep they've gone down, it's almost like they're below the river level. Well, they must be pretty close to it.
I think that was a sewer work. It looks
Well,
like a dam, to be honest.
well,
It reminds me of a dam.
this is the thing. All these star forts, as an umbrella term, they always seem to be beside water. So I'm going to suggest that those slits that they always tell us are for firing guns through, the original function I would have thought would have been something to do with water drainage or filtration, and maybe those slits with the filtering. I'm only speculating. I've got nothing to go on. It's just a sort of in docks and things, and the way funnels work when you're pouring something, and it goes through a narrow sort of neck, which those slits do. They sort of resemble that in stone.
Do you know what I see though when they're going through? Sometimes there's more greyer stone with the brick, and sometimes there's the darker stone with the brick, and sometimes in the grey stone is bricked. I don't know. It's just hard to work it all out. It's all mangled together.
Yeah. Well,
right now we've got that's the darker stone, that's the lighter stone, and all this is brick. Whether this is brick as well, it doesn't look it. It looks like stones. But I don't know. Carry on, James.
I was going to say, when you get into those deeper bits, you've got what basically resembles something that would have had the consistency of gravy or custard that has turned to rock.
Oh, you want me to find that? Hang on a
Well,
second. Let's go and find that. And I'll find that bit because
yeah,
you're talking about it. There you go, James. It stopped perfectly there. It looks like it's part of the building, but you think that's come in.
yeah. Well, from an architectural and engineering point of view, I mean, those you'd have to chisel away through that sort of rock sludge to put those bricks in. That looks like it's something that's come down, like a chute.
So that bit of the building could be ruined just there.
Well, we're told that there were military forts. What if the original function is something to do with filtration? Maybe they weren't meant for people to walk through. Maybe
What do you
that's
mean
why those.
filtration? The water, you mean?
Yeah, well, there's 275 worldwide ancient stories of a flood. So I think it's fairly safe to say, and looking at all the evidence of on Earth, that there was some sort of cataclysmic event where sea levels rose. How, mind you, how they would have put these things in the first place, that's another question. But there seems to be a functional purpose that's not military to them, I would say. The fact that they're always next to a river estuary or something like that, it seems to me to indicate it's to do with filtration and reclaiming land.
Oh,
And
so you mean it's like a great big windmill then?
well,
Oh, I see. So this could have been after I can't think of the word to say the word. The cataclysmic event then.
yeah, well, IRS Media Channel, he featured using Google Earth. He went all the way around the African continent, and they're all roughly about 600 kilometers apart. I would say part of the reason they are the specific shapes with 6 or 8 or 5 sides in this particular case is because they're facing and linking like a grid system with other star forts. They all seem pretty much a very
When you see
similar.
it up from above in a drone, it looks a bit Starfort-like-ish.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to look at the Google Earth image of Landguard Fort at Felixstowe Docks, you could see what that is in that grass impression.
Do you
You've
want me to
got
find a
a
picture
clear.
of it? Do you
Yeah,
want me to find a... One second, then let me just stop again. We're stopping and starting loads today. Yeah, I've got a picture of it up now, James.
right. I was going to say you can see how the clear sort of 5 sides to that, and then you compare it with that one at Plymouth, and if you look at the undulations in the grass, that seems to resemble that, exactly the same shape.
Yes, that's a redoubt fault. That's like the one in Eastbourne. Oh, right, I get it. The
Yeah,
one in Eastbourne, you only really see the circular bit, but there is another
yeah,
building just off of the Eastbourne one. So it's probably part of that. It's probably one of the corners.
yeah.
Oh, they've ruined it in Eastbourne because there's a picture there of Landguard and it looks just like the redoubt fort in Eastbourne.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very Roman-like as well, doesn't it? I know it's a star fort, but it reminds you Roman-like.
The other thing I was going to say, the interior of the one at Plymouth, that grass looks cut or maintained. You can see where there's a few ruts of where a motorized vehicle has gone over part of it at some point recently. But the rest looks, it's too, there's no wild grasses or wild flowers coming up in it or anything. It's just,
It's been maintained a bit, you mean?
well, it's exactly the same
Except the
feeling.
one in Plymouth's got trees over the bit and you just can't quite make it out and the trees cover up what's going on.
Whenever you've got these large grassed areas, it's like golf courses. They've got this almost like secret society exclusivity feel about them, and you start thinking, well, the best place to hide something is in plain sight. So what better way of having something like a golf course? Landguard Fort, you used to be able to climb over the wall, but then they'd got the RSPB. It's next to a nature reserve, and they conveniently keep an eye on the place. But it's now turned into a museum. But there always seems to be a cover story, so you can never really investigate these things properly.
That looks just like the one in Eastbourne.
Yeah. The other interesting thing I mean, I can only speak from the Landguard one and also other military installations and pillboxes. The, the density and quality of that brick is not like a household brick of today. That is a very different type of brick. And I think whatever the time scale, that's been these structures have been there for quite some time, and they've stood the time. They're not an easy thing to hide or remove, and they seem to be everywhere, right round the world.
Okay, 1 second, James. This is the one at Eastbourne, and there is a building there. I reckon there would have been one here. It would have looked very similar. That is the same sort of thing. This redoubt, it's a redoubt fort.
Well,
Redoubt,
that's what they tell us today.
yeah.
But it without, I mean, I don't know who first came up with the idea, but I can see why they're referred to as star forts. But I think fort is probably the wrong term. It implies straight away military. I feel that they're
Here's
more to
another one. It says a trot redoubt fort, Dover Western Heights. That looks just like the one you were talking about just a minute ago.
yeah.
And then there's that was obviously the same place. That looks exactly the same. But the one in Eastbourne is just more or less round, but then they could have mended it. Oh, I don't know. I reckon that building might have been part of it. I don't know. They've done something to it, but the middle bit's there.
Well, the other interesting thing they point out towards the end of their video on that Plymouth one, when they're coming back out, there's a rusted iron pipe that's been poorly covered in concrete, but it doesn't fit with the accuracy of the architecture. It seems to be an afterthought, whether it's to do with the toilets that they've put in. That you've
Hang
got
on then.
those
Let me just go to there because I know where that is. Hang on. What are you saying, James?
well, when they point out about this, I suppose it's an iron pipe,
I've
probably
just seen
to
another
those.
couple of iron pipes, like there was, like we have on our houses there, just that going down. They just walk past it. Anyway, they're still walking at the moment.
The point I was going to make is where the pipe has been covered over, it's very shoddy in compared to the precision of all that stonework. So that seems to be a retrofit. The other interesting thing they pointed out with the sort of men's cubicles, what was separating the cubicles was slate. Now, to me, if you say slate, I'd think South Wales. So why would they bring slate? Where would the nearest slate mine be to that place? And why would they put that in as a partition? That's a curiosity in itself.
Yeah, I've just put the video on because we were outside and there was a couple of pipes, but I don't know if anyway. And did you see those nodule things in there? There's all these like the outside was inside with these like they'd have gargoyles on them.
What's on this the one
Well,
at Plymouth?
it's got like windows in it, but there's no windows, holes. It looks like a corridor, but it only goes so far. And it's got these nodules all along the wall, which they would put like gargoyles on.
Well, they suggested that that was maybe to hold an upper floor on that part.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're tunnels for people to walk through. I think it's more it's some sort of filter. That concrete floor and concrete steps, I would say are far more recent. They probably went a lot deeper.
Yeah, those ones, the floor looks more like stone now, but on a lot of them it looks like concrete.
I mean, some bits of that structure you could say, oh, that was built to that height for much taller people. But then you get to other bits, and it's like, no, they're people of the same height of today. And then you've got that funny sort of inner perimeter tunnel where there's clearly a sort of brick dome, but then it's been infilled like it's restricting the flow. I mean, it would if you were using it as a fort and you'd want to pass ammunition down to soldiers and things, you wouldn't really want to restrict that corridor and make it so you've got to turn sideways to go through it. That defies logic. That defies the purpose of it being a defensive structure as a military thing originally. It's sort of it's a nonsense to think of it as a military fort, I think. I'm talking about for its original purpose here. What it's been modified and used as, and the backstory we've got with the so-called history is another thing.
You're right, it's right on the river.
But the engineering feat of building that in the first place, I mean, I'm not going to.
You can see the trees are all part of it. You know, they're in it, and it's the whole shape. And it was like I now see it's a fort. You can see it's a like a star fort.
Yeah. The other problem with this is there's no sort of even sort of like an official history backstory that would go far enough to explain these things.
Well, in a way, they've probably put the trees there to cover it up.
Yeah, more than likely. That may actually help. It sort of nature may come to the rescue again. I mean, we can sort of date things by trees to a certain extent, because of the lives of these trees. So if you see them in an old photograph and then you see them in a more recent photo, you can sort of calculate at least when the tree was put there.
Mm.
Which you can then sort of safely say the building was there before this date, as more factual than speculation. But when they were built, who built them, what they're originally for, it just, to me, it just seems they're always next to water, always next to river estuaries. There's something to do with filtration, and I think those slits in the walls are actually
Oh, that's the end of the video.
like a
Hang on a
filter.
second. Just go back to a bit of the videos we're talking. We'll just go back to there, put it on. Right, carry on, Jane. Oh, I'm just showing the one in it was it's not playing, come on, play. It's Paul Cook when he said that place in Dover, was it Dover? Hastings was also the same sort of thing, and it's got these big arches in it.
More than likely, I bet it's the
And
same
red brick,
style.
of course. And red brick.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of that brick there is around the world.
And he was going, I've seen this before in Malta, but I'm thinking, no, it's here as well. Anyway, and we're now back in the place in Plymouth. How do you say that? Ashton. How do you say it? The name of it, the place in Plymouth.
You'll have to spell it. I can't remember.
Seraesdon.
Seriston,
Yeah,
I guess.
Seraesdon Fort.
Because I'd never heard of it until you sort of
Well, that's
featured
it.
that.
You
Right?
only know what you know, don't you? If you don't know,
Yeah,
you don't know.
but it was good. You featured it, and I thought I'll watch the whole video. That's actually really good because they get chased out of one place by security guards.
We're back
Then
on that stuff coming in now. The rocks there, whatever it is, in between some of the sort of the walkways. There's all that stuff coming in and stopped.
well, it resembles if you've got something like a metal saucepan and you pour gravy, and where it runs down the edge, it's got that same sort of look and consistency about it that's then seemed to have dried out and sort of turned into rock.
Mm.
It's like somebody's poured a bowl of custard over the thing. Same as these rock
It
carved
didn't destroy the
things.
building.
No,
Unless that's it destroyed, that they can't go to the right because it's destroyed in there because of the rock. But it is quite incredible. It didn't destroy the building. You said it's so well made, it wouldn't do it. But there's quite a lot of stuff in there as they go down.
yeah, but the brick seems to go behind it. I would imagine if it's possible to dig that all out, you'd probably find that those tunnels or on that brick keeps going to somewhere.
They've got the little slits in there, like when they were supposed to put the bows and arrows out.
Yeah, I think they're the filters.
What, just the little slits?
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about it if you pour a liquid into a smaller bottle, you'd use a funnel, or if you're filtering something, it goes through a funnel and it goes through a very congested sort of outlet.
And so it's most supposed to flood then.
Yeah, I think there's something to do with land drainage. I mean, people talk about a flood,
Well, very
And
quickly, just so that you are aware, there's even one of these in New York. It's called Fort Wadsworth, and there's more.
yeah, it's the same. It's the same semicircular, same arched, sort of numerous rooms and
Got
everything.
you know, the arches in it, all full of arches.
Yeah, and it's right next to a river.
Yeah, it's like right next to water.
Yeah, I think that I'm of the idea, because of where they're situated. That's what they're for, and I think those slits are nothing to do with being for soldiers firing rifles through, or bows and arrows.
Both
I
arrows.
think they're well. I think their original purpose is for filtration, in the same way that religious
They're a
buildings were
dam
not
base, like a
built.
dam.
Yeah, that sort of
That's
thing.
what I said. They look like dams.
The other thing is, when people talk about the flood, they're thinking in terms of like non-stop rain. But the question to ask is, where does the water come from in the first place? Now, I think it's actually come up from underneath, and then maybe with the atmospherics, it's been taken up into the clouds, and then it's rained non-stop in. Because
Very
it's
quickly as
like,
well,
what
James,
actually
just
caused.
to add to your thing, you
Hmm,
know, like we were doing the forts out in the sea by Southampton, they've got one as well here
yeah,
in New York, but it's not round, it's like hectagonal. It's
yeah,
got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides you can see, so it's got 8 sides,
yeah.
but it's the same thing. It's in the water.
Hmm. It sort of begs the question of how they built the things in the first place. But
So annoying, we don't really know how old they are and so forth,
well,
isn't it?
there is quite a consistent theme through the so-called history. The Anunnaki story, the battle between Enlil and Enki. It was what was supposed to, in that story, is supposed to have caused the flood, was a miscalculation of an explosion. I seem to remember a certain professor in Cambridge totally miscalculating about a current event. And then if you go back through history, how many times that word miscalculation comes up? Like Napoleon miscalculated trying to take Russia, Hitler miscalculated trying to reach Russia, and this sort of thing. And it's like, looks like the same script over and over again with that word.
Mm. And the other thing as well is that in some of the building, the grey stuff, which actually might be dark brown, some of this, is the same colour as the brick. The brick's been painted like a grey colour.
Yeah, that seems to be certainly a lot of MOD properties all seem to have that heavy sort of paint on the brick. In fact, I think some of the underground do. I know they've got tiles down there as well, but I'm sure they paint bricks as well. I could be wrong on that though. But there's a certain sort of look about MOD stuff, a consistency in architectural style, and that use of paint on bricks as well, on interior walls and passageways.
Yeah, so, but I think they were using this in the First or Second World
Mm.
War, weren't they? This one.
Yeah. The other thing, when they're walking around that sort of inside, they're going and just looking in the rooms, and it's like, although there's no windows there, they've got like wooden frames where windows were, and I thought, just like Landguard again. It's got that almost Victorian sash window look about them. It seems, why have they taken the windows and the window but just left the edge of the frame in the window?
We're going through the dark, the grey, the dark with the brick. Dark, grey, dark with the brick. But the
This
amount,
is great.
say they mended it, the amount of time it would have taken to have mended this.
Well, who knows what the time scales of these things are. I mean, if you look on Wiki at anything, like a county hall or whatever, it's ridiculously short pace. Some of these things are built in a year, and it's like, no way, can
Yeah.
you do
Well,
that today?
sometimes in other videos I've heard that people say, well, it's recorded, it only took 2 weeks to make a castle.
Yeah. Or but I think it's on still on the wiki thing. It's sort of, you just got to get yourself 25,000 architects and master builders, and you can build a Taj Mahal in a very short space of time.
Yeah. You can go
So
click your fingers and it's there.
it's when you sort of read these things now, it just seems so ridiculous.
Can
But
you
at the
imagine
time,
this?
in
It
isolation,
would have taken centuries if we were doing it now.
we'd have all the health and safety and risk assessments these days. Where even start?
I find it really weird that, you know, these redoubt forts, they're all under the ground. I know that you say that maybe something's come up over the top of them. In here, you know, in the churches when they've got those arches which go up and then they sort of veer off in like a triangle and twist round.
Yeah,
It's got some of those in there.
yeah, that's strange. It's like an afterthought.
I think this bit must have flooded more. There's a lot more mud down here and it's quite wet. And then there was string up, you know, so it's as if they don't go in here, which is left there. But it's not flooded now, but it looks like it's been
hmm.
flooded.
It's curious as well what with that Plymouth one, what they have blocked off and what hasn't been blocked off.
Well, they're not supposed to be in there anyway, are they?
No, but I mean, if it's the thing could, all these tunnels and things could flood and they're a danger. Well, why would you just brick up half of them and leave the rest when those tunnels are going down just as deep, presumably, as the middle ones? But what's causing that heat in that middle bit? What's causing that noise? What's really going on in there?
They look like tube tunnels almost.
Yeah.
So
Well,
who just knows what the tube's really about then? It's full of
well,
tunnels and all sorts of things.
well. This is the thing. We've only got this.
You don't think it was a train station, do you?
No, but I mean, what were the London tube system? Was that really built when we're told, was it built for that purpose originally?
Mm.
The thing with all of it, and the amount of brick, it's incredible.
Did you say that you wrote to them or something?
I I left
The
a
secret
few
vault, that's
comments.
what they were called. The secret vault.
That's it. I left a few comments and saying, have you looked at it from this perspective? Because they're giving like the official sort of history you get off Wiki. So they're not looking at it in an alternative perspective. They're just going in and viewing these things. But that's another theme, and I think I think everybody that hears this will notice this. If you start connecting the dots on certain topics, that's when the censors seem to take notice. If you're doing like that channel and just featuring that and saying this is what's here, but they're not actually then speculating and saying it's this because it was used for that and
Yeah, they
leading on
keep
to
their
something else.
mouths shut a bit, don't they? Because sometimes they do make odd comments about, especially the abandoned ones. They go, wow. But they don't go on about, well, it's the government doing this or anything like that. They don't go on about things.
Well, he did do
But they
it.
shouldn't even be there in a way because they're breaking and entering, aren't they?
Well, they're not breaking and entering because they've got a key.
Oh, and very quickly, James, remember Donington Castle has the same problem as that place. They've mended
Yeah.
the castle with red brick.
Yeah. You've also, on the outside of that, you've got those same impressions in the grass. And then you've
What,
got
at
those,
Donington?
yeah, and you've also got traces of what must have been an outside wall at one time, a much bigger structure, because you wouldn't just build a
Yeah, but
gatehouse
it's
like
still
that.
not very big there. You've been there, you know that this was a very small castle if it was a castle. But they've now changed it to fortified building. It's different than a
Yeah.
castle.
Oh yeah, a fortified home, wasn't it? They said on the plaque.
Yeah.
Since they've had a sort of a government approved organisation running the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be so easy to sort this out if you could get, like on Time Team, that little trolley with the ground penetrating radar. But now here's going to be the problem. You'd have to go to a university who'd probably want to know the ins and outs of what you're going to use it for. It would probably cost thousands just to hire it. Then you'd have to get the permission from whoever to then go and do it. So
They're
it's
never going to
never
give
going
you
to happen.
permission to go in this place if it's still a military building, are they? And they still
No,
use it. They're never going to let you go in there.
but they're certainly not going to. Sorry, they're not going to let anybody have any equipment where you could verify something independently either.
Hmm.
Because if the likes of you or I could get hold of this equipment, on a sort of a related note as well, you get these hideous sculptures or like couple of stones stood up and then a stone across the top, sort of resembling something like Stonehenge in recent years. Now, if you or I went to the council and said, we want to put this stone up and to commemorate this, what do you think they're going to say? I'd have thought most likely they'll say no. Because some of these more modern things, you think, why on earth would they even allow that to go up? It's hideous. And what's it really for? It's sort of just a ridiculous bit of stone being stood up in the middle of nowhere, and why? What's it all about? He's on university grounds and things. And
do you want to talk a bit more about this, James, or we've got something else to talk about?
I don't mind.
This fort thing, I'd like to know so much more, but it's not in our history, is it? There's nothing there. You've got to.
We can only sort of speculate on that sort of thing.
We need a new team, unbiased, and doesn't think about the past and then look at it.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen, is it?
No, not in the way this realm is. No.
I mean, we very much appreciate this channel for making this video. At least they've shown us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to stop the. So the next part of our hangout is to stay positive. Yes, James.
Yeah. I mean, this realm is backwards. We're coming up to that time of year. People like things lit up, and I don't think things are going to be lit up quite as much this year, shall we say? But if things are lit, you want to know why, and this is the fundamental difference. We've got a world that has hospital, which is a business dealing in sickness. What we actually want is universal hospitality.
Right.
Because all this sickness is all artificial. That's why it can be patented. That should tell anybody.
Yeah, it goes on the thing. It's keeping us in fear.
It's been manufactured in one way or another, whether it's a real thing or whether it's just a story. It's all fear, fear, fear.
They love us.
You cannot have a wave that only has a crest and no trough. And interestingly, at the moment, Venus is talking to Pluto in astrology. And it's like, well, what is Pluto? Well, the world is deny. Walt Disney will tell you Pluto is a rather stupid dog that looks rather like Goofy. But in astrological terms, Pluto is the mystery. It's behind Neptune, which is the mystic. So it's basically divine feminine is talking to the hidden depths, the mysteries of humanity, and is saying, hey, I've got a voice here, and things can't go on the way they are. So what we're actually seeing in a very agonizingly slow way is this play out of what's going on in the sky is reflected here, the micro and the macro. And there are some beautiful signs, and also out of the current events, you're starting to see so-called family and everything in their true colors. Unpleasant though that may seem at the moment, the thing to remember that life is just a chapter in a book, and the story has not been finished. The story just keeps running. So things are turning for the better.
They'd get bored of doing this, wouldn't you? I just think they love it. It's the most boring thing ever.
I don't think it's that I don't think they have a choice. They're in too deep, thick as thieves, that they can't extricate themselves out of this. They've got to try and keep this going.
Yeah. I see a cliff and I see boof off the edge of the cliff for the whole lot.
Well,
concentration camp for the whole lot. I'm not really into all that, but what they've done is treason.
I'm more of, I go along the idea of if you're going to restore an old car, there comes a point where you can't keep the original part. It's too far gone. It's too corroded. It needs to be chopped out and replaced with something better. And as I see it, the earth is going to do just like the way they show a cell does. You'll have a new Earth being born out of the old Earth. What sort of clinched it for me, talking to different people. Now, imagine an area the size of 2 American football fields. So we're not talking a very big area. Certain people felt the earthquakes who have gone along with the fear program story and done as they're told, as opposed to those that can see there's something wrong with that without saying it in ways that you'll get this censored. And they didn't feel the earthquakes. Now, I think this is down to frequencies. If you're in the fear state, you're on a different frequency. It's talked of in spirituality about being attuned, tuning in. Well,
but you know what? Sorry, just I don't mean to cut you off there. When I was looking up Yoggerland, and it seemed when I got into all that in the 17 and 1800s, we had tsunamis and earthquakes here. We had them anyway. So
quite possibly.
probably do get earthquakes every now and again, but nothing like they get, you know, in Japan and stuff like that.
Well, if you notice, this year has been very much.
We now realise that mining and fracking causes earthquakes.
You notice this year has been very much a green theme right throughout the entire year.
What, with water flooding everywhere, you mean?
Where you had the Evergreen Line ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, the Zeus Canal, the Birthing Canal. There's plenty about the green screen and CGI. It's where the attention goes, the energy flows. In the chakra system, the heart is shown as green, heart, earth. It's neutral. It's a neutral color. So what is the system presenting? Because it's basically follows a textbook narcissist. What it's projecting out on the screens, the 2-dimensional world. It's not even 3-dimensional if you think about it. It's a green screen, illusory gaslighting world. Whereas doing things from the heart is the other green, the true natural green.
Heart, color is green in the chakras.
And it's banging.
Love color is pink or red or something like that, but it's green in the chakras.
Well, this reality is backwards. When you cut yourself, blood is red. But so why would the heart be shown as green on the chakra system? It's like a photograph and a negative. Red becomes green and green becomes red. It's interesting. What's flashed into my head now is what they're called, aces, the trees, the way they go that beautiful, they start off green and they go red. That's shown in nature as well.
Right.
But no, I'm perfectly happy with the way things are. I've made a 2-part video about coincidences. What are they really?
Shall I stick that into the video about now? 1 second, let's just stop the video.
Yeah.
It's like that's where we were adding it.
Greetings. This might end up as 1, 2 or 3 videos. I've no idea. There's a lot to cover. Start off with I'm going to go with that you are all actually watching the screen, because the last thing I want is you putting this video on, turn around to make a cup of tea or something and sort of shock, what did he say, and burn yourself with hot water or anything. So what I'm going to say is, first off, is join me in the shower. Yeah, you can't see it, can you? Because the 5 senses only detect within a certain range. I'm thinking how to best to talk about all this and keep it in a cohesive whole. There is a thing that people will call coincidences. I'll give you a case in point. Initially, part of this video I thought about making earlier while I was going to the shop. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough battery power on the phone. And went outside. It's, I think, about 1 degree Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius. But I didn't bother putting a coat on because I wanted to test out something. And that was denying the 5 senses that it's not cold. I'm not going to feel the cold. And I didn't. I've only got shirt sleeves on the arms. But in my mind I denied that. So I'm still letting the other senses detect, as it were, what I'm seeing in this visual reality. But I'm denying that it's cold. I'm denying that it's a star and it's a dark sky. The light's pretty much gone. I've got sunshine coming down on me. I'm feeling the heat from the sun. Interesting little experiment, and quite successful. But the amazing thing was, while I was out, quite close to me, and it didn't sort of run off. It ran off from the Jack Russell from the next door neighbour's garden as I was walking past, but there was a fox. So when I came back, I just thought, let's have a look on Facebook. And first post is about wildcats, wolves and pictures of foxes. Coincidence? So what about number sequences? What about synchronized thoughts? Are they coincidences? At what point does it stop being a coincidence? What actually is it? I was talking to, well, messaging Pippi on a String. If you haven't seen her channel, it's tarot readings. It's a cosmic tarot. You can hear it on a personal level, you can hear it on a much greater level and on a cosmic level. As an example of this, when she says person, hear that also in terms of humanity as a whole. It depends how you hear things and what you're hearing. It's hearing behind the hearing, if that makes any sense. Where do we go with this? Yes, so what actually is it? The clue is in I wish you were here. Now I don't mean in a physical sense, I mean in the Pink Floyd song sense of the same word. It's the lyric that came through about, we're just like two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after year. What are the two souls swimming in a fishbowl? It's just you, basically, because it's always a duality reality. So the two is actually two, so there's actually four, because you're basically like, imagine four ply hardwood, as it were. You're 4 layers. You have a trinity within a physical body. Yes, the astral, the eye organisation, the etheric. And probably the greatest time you'll be most aware of this is that moment when you wake from sleep, where the eye organisation and the astral have left the etheric and the physical behind. The etheric is about expanding consciousness, and through the etheric it fills a body. You are basically a conduit, you're dual. You're the midway point on the earthing plane between the magnetism above, that wants to pull up, to ascend, You have a downward pull of earth. Because if you notice that things get pulled down into earth, so if you attach yourself too much to this reality, you will solidify yourself. But of course, when I'm saying yourself, it's like as much as true as what I'm seeing back in this screen. That's only a two-dimensional. But what you see in the mirror is not you. He's live at the moment, and it's a very good channel, but I wasn't going to watch anything before making this video because it can influence, but I had to write it down because I thought, I know I'll forget it. Theoria Apophasis channel. Very good. Explains about magnets, and to quote him, you're not going to be able to think your way out of a thinking box. Very true. This reality is a mirror. It runs backwards. It's that time of year you all want things lit up. Why? Well, it's all in the spell, basically, in this physical material realm. If you can move the words and change the meaning of them. So without the lit why, you want it lit, and why, it's L-I-T-Y. Without it, you've got hospital, which is for profit. It's a business in sickness. But if it's universal hospitality, it becomes something very different, something from the heart. This year has been all about the theme of green, the evergreen line stuck in the Suez Canal, the green screen of CGI, the green of the heart chakra. What do you give your attention to? The external or the internal will determine a lot. But imagine, if you will, we'll go with back to the Pink Floyd, because I've digressed and meandered, but that's the nature. Imagine, if you will, that you are a fish in that fish bowl. So around you, you've got water, which basically is what air is in a different form, more of a spiritual form. And it's like seawater, in which it will have salt, which is a crystalline structure. So just outside the five senses. This is why I say I wish you were here, so you could, some of you I'm sure do feel this. You can almost touch. What they're showing you with Zuckerberg and the virtual metaverse, these things are all based on something else, based in a material form, as it were. Even in a virtual form, in a material realm. See how that's sort of twisted from a tangible to a non-tangible within this realm. It's even that is sort of evolving down a path, shall we say. And so I think it's fair to, I think most of you can see that the perceived dark side lacks imagination and lacks creativity, therefore it can only copy and imitate. So ask yourself where the Google Cloud comes from. It's this downpouring, the download in the spiritual. This is why I say it's in the shower. You can't see it, but you can feel it. You see it in your mind's eye. You'll get these what are called downloads. So coincidences, synchronized thoughts, numerical sequences. It's an interaction with this matrix, basically. An organic matrix is probably as close as a way of describing it in words. That's the difficult thing with this. And it's the difficult thing is expressing it in words. But we have to work with what we've got. So, where do we go from here? There's a lot, and it's almost like I've forgotten bits as quick as they're coming. But I didn't want to write anything down and write anything out in a sequence. I want this to unfold naturally. Yes, another point I was going to say. The healing from the testimonies and the feedback, it's pretty instantaneous. Hind legs of a cat's Mako, and this beautiful black cat is now walking about. So, did I do anything special? No. I didn't do anything that any of you are not capable of. All it is unlocking it within yourself. It's not a special power that's given to a few, but there is a sequence of events to it. It's being open to the ideas of feeling what it would be like. From that comes the concept. When you've conceptualized it, then will follow the experience. The experience itself is really difficult to put into words. Again, going back to Theoria Apophasis Channel. How did he describe it? It was absolutely, yes, radio waves. The radio broadcast comes from somewhere. Now it's everywhere and nowhere until it is decoded by electronic circuits. And there's a magnet in there, of course, and you've got the diaphragm, the speaker, that then decodes it into something we then understand in a human form. And it's a very good analogy, and yeah, I seriously recommend you subscribe to his channel. It'll be another way of expressing things in probably the way he can. He's just got that gift in that way. I can't say I'm envious, because I'm grateful with the way things are explained to me and the way things are unlocked to me. Going back to words, very interesting example is Rudolf Steiner. I just want to check the time. It's 14 minutes. I don't want to make this too long. Yes, Rudolf Steiner lecture. I'll put the link in the description. It's about I think it's something. I think it's the title is on the lines of humanity in Greek art, how it's expressed. And I'm going to take out of that, just for this, you've got Greek tragedy, but look at the way the word tragedy is expressed today, and it's far removed, I think it's fair to say, from what a Greek tragedy is. You can also say with an opera that it is a drama, and whilst you have a visual aspect to an opera, they're actually very slow moving, because they're obviously singing arias and great solos, and often repeating, especially in the Italian operas, they're repeating phrases, which is not exactly how you'd speak. So it's a very slowed down visual, but then you can go to the two-dimensional of Hollywood, and you can have an action film where it's all about the movement, and then it's very easy to get lost because the eyes are focused, because wherever the attention goes. So you have to pull back from these things. But when you've got this crystalline everythingness and nothingness that's there, you can start tapping into this source. Now, I don't know how it works. I don't want to know how it works, because I'm just appreciative of having the proof. And when I say the proof, it's only as I only need to prove it to myself that this works. I don't need to know how it works. I can describe it to you. So say, for example, we take this Mako, this cat with this pelvis that's now trying to walk around already. It's pretty instantaneous. In my mind, I can't say it's my conscious thoughts. It just comes into the mind's eye. And it's shown to me in ways, I suppose, that I can then at least try and express. But it's all about the feeling. And it's beyond a Wi-Fi, because it's all in the air. I'm projecting out, and it's being received just like a broadcast. Obviously, the person involved has asked, because they've seen the proof from the testimonies. Now, this is the thing we must be really clear about. It's not testimonies of how good I am. It's testimonies of this works. It's just channeling an energy. The link is between what's going on in my mind's eye and how I feel, and what I create from that, and how that's received, and what the other person wishes to feel. The problem is when you get words like belief. When you believe something to the point where you deny what the five-sense reality is showing you, and it manifests into this reality, it's that type of belief. The belief that you get from the experience because you have witnessed it for yourself. This is not about you agreeing with me. This is simply about opening up ways for you to find things, to prove to yourself. Because if we get set and stuck in certain ways, we become stagnant, we become solid, we become rigid. We're pushing against this spiritual air, this wind. And of course, if it was a tree, it would snap. It's that being wise as serpents, that weaving through this realm. But it's a bit like car restoration, shall we say. Imagine, if you will, something like a Model T Ford. It's getting very old, and there comes a point where you have to decide whether you can keep the original parts. Is there anything there enough to salvage to say it's original, or do you really need to start with something new? That's basically what's happening with Earth. We are creating something new. It's a collective thing, just like the weather is an expression of the collective mood. It's all from human energy, it's all from thought, it's all from feeling. That's why you have all these scripts being run, because it is trying to get certain feelings from you about certain things, which is then shaping things. But guess what? Game over, because it's equal power on this one. It's neutral. I'm going to leave it there and go on to a part 2 of this, because although it all follows on, I don't want to make these too long, but it's in answer to a question. So I shall be back with a follow-up. So I'll say ta-ta for now. I loved you all. I hope this has made sense. Do leave comments in the questions if you want me to go over anything. But I don't have the answers. Anyway, I'll leave it there because I can carry on while it's still fresh in the mind.
Right, James, we've just watched your video.
Yeah, so you've got that green theme going on, but this thing with coincidences, I mean, this happened to me yesterday. I was going to make the original video while I was walking over to the shop, but the battery was only 31%. And I thought, well, there's not enough there. I'll wait till I come back or do it later. So I've gone outside, and then a few doors along, it was beautiful. There was a fox. And it didn't sort of really run off, but it did when the next door neighbour's garden's Yorkshire Terrier came out. This fox then took off.
Yeah.
So I've gone to the shop, and that was interesting in itself. I thought I'd try a little experiment. I've only got a body warmer on. I've got a shirt under that and a t-shirt. And I've only got my Crocs, no socks on my feet. So I've gone out, no coat or anything. It's, according to the forecast, about 2 degrees. It's now got dark. So like I said on the video, in my mind, I'm imagining sunshine and feeling the heat, and I didn't get cold. But when I came back, I thought I'd just have a look on Facebook. The first post is all about wild foxes and wolves and wildcats and things. And I thought, coincidence? Yeah, right. It comes down to seek and ye shall find. I would say this thing we call air, which is a version of water. If you imagine it as like a
Watered down water.
you think of it like an ocean with a crystalline structure. Well, we're in a matrix, and we're mostly water inside the human body. There's an interaction with this internet, this AI, and this is why people are getting these things on their news feeds. I feel it's like, why are they thinking about something and then it's there? I think it's fair. I think it's told as a fear story of their what Big Brother
Sometimes
is.
I found that, like, I've been thinking about something,
Yeah,
and then the next thing is when I look it up, there it is.
yeah, and I don't think it's AI like they portray it, because I mean, if you take the ultimate fear, we're being dragged.
Alive.
If you take the ultimate thing of we're being forced to be dragged out of our homes, is that really happening? Have they got the resources to pull that off? No, I don't think so.
I have thought lately that with the army and the navy, they're not very big anymore. We don't even have any boats, do we?
Well, I'd have thought it's quite apparent the more you start to see things, especially with the media, that it's all lies and it's all fear-based, illusory lies. It's magician's tricks. There's nothing real that's behind it. And all it's done is to try and create a feeling inside of each person. You wonder why the weather is so erratic. You wonder why there's earthquakes. It's human energy is causing this by the way they're feeling.
All the fracking or mining, don't forget.
Well, that adds on to it, because it also generates protest groups. So it's creating a negative energy because they don't want that. You've got arguments, it's division, it's exploited fully. It's good business sense. If you've got something, it's like, well, we'll destroy that, but we can also leave that bit there because we can use that later as another fear story or another lie to base things on.
Let's go back to our hangout, James. I'm going back to our hangout. 1 second. Yeah, sorry, James, carry on.
Yeah, it all seems to rely on the way humanity feels about things. The more fear and negative stories they can generate, the more fear is created, the more chaos it creates. It's all about creating order out of chaos. So by creating the chaos in the first place, and it's the same as everything, you want to, like the mobile phones, we'll give you this, you'll have instant access to that, but the real reason is the dagger behind the hand, but we're really giving it to you because we want to spy on you. But the fact that they have to spy on us should say that they can't watch us all the time as well.
But, you know, with the way that things are going after being all lockdowns and everything, you know, a lot of people are now homeschooling their children. And my passport ran out in the middle of it, and I'm not renewing it now. So
there's no
people
point.
get more underground now. So everybody's worried that they've got all our information, but we're a bit more underground now than we were, because
they must have
children are missing out of the education system now.
They must have they must have all the information in a central computer, because you can use a credit card and pay for something, and it's going to be, the funds are going to be gone within seconds out of your account or whatever. So it's just a silly palaver. It's like prove your identity. Well, it's the same information you got on your screen that you know, it's like this company has rung me. They've got the number, and they're asking. Funny enough, they've got the right surname and everything, so they've got the information on the screen, but they need it confirmed. It's just jumping through hoops and like some sort of stupid ritual. It's all time wasting. I mean, is there any way you can phone up and actually speak to a human voice? You notice the subtle interaction with machines all the way through. You go into a supermarket, it's self-serving tills. Please place your item in the bagging area. And then that very false pre-recorded, thank you for shopping at wherever. Have a nice day. And oh, it's so fake and impersonal.
After it's broken down about 3 times and you have to get someone to come across and help you.
I don't use them. I'll go and use the tills. I have a nice chat with the cashiers and how are you today? And I might say, oh, I bet you get sick of hearing that. Because when you've got a bank of these things and they're like split second apart with different customers and it's saying it staggered, that I feel sorry for the people having to work in those places.
Those things are going like they go and put your item in there and continue, and like you've got to be like jumping around like a fly in a whatever. It doesn't allow you to have any time to do anything before it's like prompting you to do something, or then it's got an error on it. Oh, can you help me out? It won't move on, and it says this, and just to then, oh dearie me, and then do things to it. I think they're weird, but
How many people that are going through that process would even be thinking about, say, something like Star Forts? It's all by design to keep you distracted. I
think that happens when you get. I'm not saying it happens to just more elderly people, but when your children have gone through, you have more time to think, and that's when you start making up even more. Not when you've got children. I'm not saying that people who have got children don't wake up. I'm just saying, for me, my children have gone, and it was 9/11, and then it was psychology, 9/11, and then the realm we live in, and the extra bits which they've been doing to us for the last few years.
Well, it's fascinating. It's sort of whatever the external is presenting, like lockdown. You just flip the script over. It's not lockdown. It's go within oneself. It's like shut off the outside world and discover the real you. I mean, when I look in the mirror, that's not me. That's just the external covering, the physical body.
Some of us would like a different way of living now. We don't want their way of living anymore. They can bugger off.
Yeah, but have you noticed every time somebody tries to break out and do their own thing, it's like, you're not allowed to do that. I mean, take something like...
We're only run by television programs.
Well, think of it this way. You've got things called public parks. By the definition, that's anybody can go in there. But you try and pinch a tent up in a park and live and say, I'm living here. It won't be long before somebody from the council...
ground.
Yeah, well, it won't be long before saying you can't do that here. And it's like, well, I thought this was supposed to be public ground. It's like the system has got everything in it. The system has to have everything in place. It dare not let anything slip, because once it starts to unravel, it will unravel. And there's so many are chipping away. It doesn't matter whether they're paid or position. It's still got enough of an element of truth for people to then think, hang on a minute, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Now you think, when you look at this compared with this, it's like, things that make you go, that's not right. But I think a lot of us have always had that sort of feeling that something ain't quite right, although you can't put your finger on it and you've got nothing to go on. It's just a gut feeling that says something's not right with everything. I mean, it's right down to schooling. It's like, if you ask too many questions, you get told to be quiet and stop asking questions. So it's like, well, I thought the whole point of learning is by asking questions. So it's not actually learning at all. It's
I mean, you know what? I feel so sorry for children. I can't remember. I don't know. But anyway, now basically all you get is the back of a teacher when she's writing on the blackboard. That's it. How interesting is that? You see why the boys play up, can't you, and throw things around when the teacher's not even looking at the class.
Well, if you sort of, by thought of association with that, if maybe think of something, when they talk about research into something costs so many thousands or needs so many thousands in funding, surely if it's theoretical equations like Einstein, all you need is a marker pen and a whiteboard, surely. It's like, So it would, I mean,
James, we're sending you into the schools.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say sending you into outer space.
No, we're sending you into the schools to sort the children out.
Well, it's not the children that need sorting out. They're actually, a lot of them are very smart. It's the way.
No, I mean from them. Children, listen to me. I'm going to tell you the truth.
Well, it's the best way I think to do that is say to the children, what would you like to learn? So
You're sounding a bit more like Steiner now.
well, yeah, yeah, the what they
Because
call
one thing I heard was that when a Steiner teacher goes and sits with the children, there's no blackboards and that. The teacher talks to the children, and if you've come from a main school, you know, state school, you can't believe that all the children are listening to you, and they remember everything through the stories. It does sound a little bit nicer than the teacher's back, doesn't it?
Well, anything that you've got an enthusiasm for or something you want to do is going to be a lot easier than something you've got to do this that you're not interested in for a start. Imagine if you had a
capture the boys. If you don't capture the boys, they're always going to play up in the classroom.
Yeah, I was going to say, imagine if you had a community where you've got, say, a gathering of, say, 40 people, and you can say, right, Jack is going to be breaking bread. So if you want to learn how to bake bread and have a go with him. Because I certainly don't get on with the formal structured education. I never did.
Who does? Well, it's horrible. And my daughter so changed when she was at primary school. The 2 primary schools she was at, they both said that she was lovely and she had a quality that a lot of children didn't have. It was the fact that she got on really well with the children and she got on really well with the teachers and everybody liked her. She goes to the state school and she completely, I mean, you knew that they're going to change anyway, but she completely changed. I didn't want her to go to that school she went to. I didn't want her to go there, but she got sent there.
The life goes through like a 7-year cycles roughly. So the first 7 years you're still in the absorbing everything stage, and then by the age of 7 you're in the school system, and then it's now
fight your way. Otherwise, there's no point. You know, it's a bit like that. You know, you've got to be quite strong in school, I think, today.
They to some degree they're sort of
always had to be strong. I don't know.
In some ways they're sort of manipulating humanity into the total intellect.
James, is that I don't have to do it again.
Yeah, they're forcing humanity down an intellect route. What I found with all of this is there comes a point where the intellect just is not enough. It can't take you there. It's in the imagination. I forget.
But you know what? I know what they've done. Like, for instance, in the 60s, they used that thing called ITA, which they put me through and loads of children through. And then they'd have probably said, this generation aren't very bright. But they did it. They ruined it by introducing another system and then changing their mind. And then it was like we'd been taught French and then put in an English class. You know, for all of us, we've all got all the people that did ITA in the 60s have got spelling problems, and we've been made artificially dyslexic through it. We should be suing the education system.
It's no doubt done on purpose, knowing full well the outcome of it.
We've been doing things. We're just one great big experiment for them the whole time.
There's a channel, I think, if I remember the name rightly, it's Fiora Apophasis.
The magnet guy.
As he says, you can't think your way out of a thinking box.
Yeah, I was talking yesterday about, you sent me that link when that guy's going with the magnet. It's got one pole and one pole, 1 and 1 equals 1.
No, this is a different one.
Right, I know it is, but I like when he explained it. That guy's doing the same sort of things.
Yeah, this other guy, he's going into the actual inside of a magnet. It's a dielectric that actually pushes out from the middle.
Right.
So if you think in terms of you go through the experience of life to death, well, what about the experience from death to life? You're probably flung back into another body. And it will be, like I said on the video, it will be based on the life story and how other people felt by what you did. But it's not about being good right from the word go, because we learn from mistakes. It's as long as you don't do something that's going to hurt someone and do it again. I mean, the first time it can be not knowing because of system programming, and it's not there's no malevolent intention behind it, but it's like this word repentance. All it means is having a complete change of mindset, and it's like, that if I do it this way, that's going to hurt them. I do it this way because it's hurting nobody else. That's all it comes down to.
Right, that's a reminder that I'm going on a hangout in half an hour. Got about
Okay.
10, 20 minutes, James.
That's perfect actually, because what's happened here? Yeah, I've only got 24% battery, so it's dropping quite quick.
Round this off then, James.
Yeah, okay.
Go for it.
Okay, I was going to say, well, really, it's a case of no matter what the external world shows you, stay true to yourself and just ask yourself the question, how much do you really want to get out of the way things are? If you're really committed, then you're just going to go for this and turn your back on the external, all the things that are there to generate fear, because it does have an effect physically on us and mentally and emotionally. And it's that saying, I feel down today. It's all, you notice it's always down, being like pulled downward, the negative feelings, the uplifting, keeping it light, it's lifting the spirits.
Yes, James.
It's sort of being aware of,
and in these horrible
what they're
times,
portraying.
stay positive as you can.
Yeah, it's being aware, but also keep in mind when like that sprouting couch potato that is supposed to be a prime minister comes out with a load of babble. It's always reversed speak. It's always coded things said in a very odd way, but it's still telling a truth within it. It's like that famous Bill Gates one with, I'm not going to say the word, we can reduce the population by 15%. That sort of nonsense. It's like, what's he really saying there? You know, people have pointed out the one
Well, maybe they're
aspect.
saying that because they've already done it. These places abandoned, the people had to go somewhere. Where have they gone?
Well, it may be they've just been moved about. I mean, who really knows how many people there are on this planet? I don't think it's anywhere near 7.5 billion.
No, because they take you out of the country, or loads of towns are abandoned in the countries, and they're funneling you into the towns. Because remember, I said about the guy who lived on the Scottish Islands, right in the middle of nowhere. So they're basically living in nature and so forth like that. And about 20 years ago, they got moved. And where did they send him? London. He was living on an island in the middle of nowhere without electricity. And then they moved him to London. I'm sure he wanted to go back to the place. He kept saying, I want to go back to where that island. I loved it there.
It's a bit of a contrast.
They just put you into a town, and then of course in a town, there's not enough of anything in a town.
Well, even if you take a small settlement, a small village, what they tell you is a population figure. When you sort of look at the thing, you think, how can there really be that many people here that they're saying? It doesn't seem to equate.
No.
I mean, it's near impossible to try and do somewhere like the size of London, but a very small village, you could probably think, hang on, we can take a Google Earth and count houses and take an average number of people in a household as a figure, and probably get a more accurate figure than, certainly it's been done with using, I think, Wiki with China and India, where people have put in how many list of cities with over more than 2 million people, and then their nationwide figures don't equate. It doesn't tally at all. It's like there's a billion missing, as it were. That's the thing. It's the irony of it is, anybody that is questioning anything about this reality, the only people that will know it'll be the social media channels. They will have the figures, because you can't say, oh, that channel's got X number of subscribers and then add the total up, because chances are it's going to be people who subscribe to many channels, so you can't get the figures anywhere.
Well, they do a census, don't they? They did do one in the middle of the lockdown. They did one.
Well, again,
lockdown, rather.
That word "sense us."
Yeah.
What's it really? There always seems to be coded alternate meanings to all these things. It's a backwards, upside down reality of black is white and white is black.
Nothing is as it seems, James.
No, it isn't. It definitely isn't.
Hmm. Well, I've really enjoyed doing this hangout,
Yeah.
James. We've talked about lots of different things. I'm glad that the place in Plymouth interested you.
Yeah, it's fascinating that.
It is. We still don't have any answers, though.
No, well, I don't know if we ever will to that. Maybe I would have thought because this thing is so elaborate, when people start doing breakdowns of some of these false flag events and then show all these numeric sequences, would imply to me you would have to have a blueprint somewhere, which obviously is not going to be in public view. So maybe without the control system, it will all unravel. I would imagine there's a lot of maybe lower ranking MPs that are caught up in this that are starting to think, I don't really, how much of a moral compass have they got? This is the thing.
Oh,
But there again, if they do find that moral compass, where are they going to say it without being censored any different from anybody else? It's not the problem is you've got a huge censorship on so much to try and compartmentalize everything. That's another pattern with everything. It's like the guy who works on the rockets at NASA doesn't know what the guy who's doing the electronic circuits is doing. And same with pyramids. Let's focus on Egypt. So people, the conception is they're only in Egypt when clearly they're not.
Silbury Hill.
Yeah. It's like, why is there no Aztecology like there's Egyptology?
They've changed the plaque at Silbury Hill, by the way, James. They've put a kind of pyramid there, but they're not calling it a pyramid. They just call it a mound still. But they've drawn it now. It hasn't got the pictures before. They put a new one up.
Ah,
Me and Maria Wheatley saw it last week.
mound, that's interesting. I like calling everything mounds.
Yeah. Well, James, we will come back and do another hangout. We always do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for you spending the time and talking about the things that you have.
You're welcome. Hopefully it's at least given somebody out there a way of thinking, yeah, maybe I need to look at this or look at myself and how do I feel about this and what I'm looking at, or listening to, what feelings is it trying to bring out in me? Is it going to put me in a fear state? This sort of thing.
Yeah. So if you hear a bit of noise in the background, it's Ellie and George are messing around.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
You better finish because they're being a bit noisy. But
James,
no, you can't. But they're doing things. The hangout might pick them up. But James, thank you so much for your time, and I will obviously add that video, and we'd have already watched it. But anyway.
Okay.
Thank you, my darling.
You're welcome, and thank you, listeners.
Thank you, James, and thank you, chat room.